You believe there is a bigger issue at play here. What's the point you want to make? Well, first of all, I'm not going to comment about, what our employers decide to do. We work for them. It's not our place to do that. I mean, when they let me go, when they didn't renew my contract a few years ago, I didn't comment about me. So I'm certainly not going to comment about anybody else. Let me say this, though. At some point in time, the black community has to recognize that we share a level of culpability in any kind of incident like that transpires. Because the heightened sensitivity that exists in our society today, we are in large part, we have a lot to do with that. As my man Skip Bayless and I have talked about over the years, there's never an excuse for somebody, in a very derogatory fashion especially, to use the N-word. There's just no excuse for it. No excuse. We understand what it means. We understand the historical perspective of that, right? But there are a multitude of other things that we have classified as racially insensitive. Some of the leaders in the black community have done so, and I'm not sitting there and calling them out as if they were wrong. I understand whether you're a Reverend Al Sharpton or Reverend Jesse Jackson. I was just with Maxine Waters, representative out of California years ago, who I love dearly. The issues that they fought, they grew up in a different time. They lived in a different time, and there's a level of sensitivity that they harbor because they know what it means, and they've experienced some of the things people of my generation have not. Right. However, that heightened level of sensitivity has had a contagious effect on other communities. So suddenly everybody is sensitive about a lot of different things because they're saying, well, if the black community gets to be ultra sensitive about anything that could be perceived as race, we may not even be sure. We might think it. And because of that, it becomes something that generates a shrapnel of criticism and controversy, and ultimately we're touching on it in such a fashion. Then you have people from the white community speaking up and saying, wait a minute, what about what we find offensive? All right, you have people from the Hispanic community. What about what we find offensive? Now you've got folks from the Asian community. What about what we find offensive? And the list goes on. And here's what has happened. We're in an unforgiving society now. Regardless of what you want to sit there and say, we don't have to talk about this incident or whatever, there are other instances in our lifetime, in America, where people have lost their jobs. They've lost their livelihood. I'm on the record. I don't believe Jimmy the Greek should have been fired years ago. I've always said that. He was off the air. He was in a bar. He was inebriated, and somebody stuck a camera in front of his face, and because of that, 30-plus years of a career down the drain. We're unforgiving. And I'm looking at a black community, and I'm saying, we make up approximately 13 to 14% of the American population. Okay? You look at the Census Bureau reports, it says that by the year 2039, the black population will increase by 1%. The Hispanic population in this country will double. Wow. When you look at it from that standpoint, we're in danger of becoming an endangered species. Okay? So when you look at it from that perspective, you have to get to a point where you don't erase what you're sensitive to. Okay? But you have to be forgiving from the standpoint of if somebody apologizes genuinely, let's try to be a bit more forgiving, because if we're not, then other people are not going to be so forgiving when something goes down with them, whether it's the ethnic groups or whether it's the homosexual community and what they perceive as offensive. And suddenly people are losing their jobs, they're losing their careers, they're losing their ability to provide for their families and all of this stuff. And why? Because somebody made a mistake. We got to be careful about having an absence of compassion. You can say what you want about me. I sit on these airwaves across from my man here, and we call it like we see it. But it is rare in the day where somebody can look in my face and tell me there's an absence of compassion, that I want somebody's career to be over, that I want somebody to lose their job or their ability to provide for their family because of a mistake. And it emanates from a level of sensitivity that we harbor that, dare I say, sometimes is just not justified. The